I'm pretty passionate about what I believe in, and sometimes people don't know everything they think they know,
I guess we're live. I don't know how that happened.
Oh.
So that must have been my husband who did that. I think. So we're doing tonight. See, this is what happens when you go live. Just strange things happen. So this is the Net Friending social time for special needs moms with yours truly, April 2.0. And with me tonight, and I mean, I don't think I could butcher your name, but you are Casey DePriest.
That's correct. Yes.
Wonderful. I finally got something right. And this is Roy, who apparently started the show without me. Thanks.
I didn't want to miss anything since Casey jumped in a little sooner than I thought, and I wasn't quite ready because my extension. I got to fix that. Casey, hello. I'm Roy.
Hi. Nice to see you, Roy.
Yes. I'll be audio only because we're doing something that is just, in my humble opinion, so amazing. No, let me say it the Net Friending way. Amazing that we want to document what we're doing and show other people how easy peasy, is that a professional word? It is to get your message out into the world. And I was just hearing you in the background here that you're very passionate about what it is you do and how you show up. And we're starting the show a little differently this week than normal, than usual, because we do have you as a guest. And I didn't want to miss any of that back chatter or behind the Net Friending curtain chatter in the healthy way, because usually when I say chatter, it's negative. Casey, we want to hear your story, your backstory, your front story, your present story, how we can connect with you in a healthy way, in an overlapping kind of way, get your message out, and do it in a win-win, mutually beneficial fashion. And not only that, but connect you with other people that you don't yet know you need to be connected to, or even want to be connected to, because that's our superpower. This is what April and I do. And so, like I said, we're starting the show a little different. So I would like for you to touch on this first before we get into any of the things that you wanted to share with us, which I'm super excited for, because it involves our son. And why wouldn't we be? So, but before that, we want to document. So I don't know if you're familiar with Gary Vee and his body of work and this, that, and the other thing. So Gary says, instead of creating new content each and every day, why don't you just document the content as you're doing your journey? And that's what I've been doing for 2.5 decades that I've been online. And ever since I met with April, I said, I'm going to record everything. I'm going to record everything. I'm recording everything. Even if we don't use it again, I'm recording it, because when you say something so fabulous, I'm not going to be able to recreate that. Like we see on TV a lot of times. This is a recreation, but it's not the same thing as if you would have caught it live. And I just triggered myself into thinking one of the most memorable moments is when one of our friends came on the show the next day with a T-shirt and what it read, and I'm not going to get into that, but April's response to that was just over the top good. And if I wouldn't have, been recording at that time, we would have missed it. So with that in mind, you're on our show, but how did you get on our show? Did we hey, Casey, would you like to be on our show? Because we're looking for guests like everybody else does in podcasts or live streams or this or that. What I really want to get across to people is that we went live somehow, some way, and that's, Casey, you're going to explain that to us. Somehow you found us, because we didn't give you an invite. It's like, hey, Casey, we're doing a show tonight. You want to join us? Mm-hmm. So somehow we crossed your path last week or the week before that, because I think this is our 3rd or 4th show in our new format for special needs moms, 4th show. Okay, awesome. And so we're wanting to affect the special needs community, autism moms, say that word, April?
He's excited.
Specifically. And we just do it. We're unscripted. We don't write anything down. We're not agonizing over, okay, what are we going to do for the next show? As you can see, I was just last minute Roy. But anyways, something triggered you to first watch the show, then put comments on the stream, and April got excited. It's like, what? music, this, what? And then it's like, oh, can you be on our show next week? So can you go back into the genesis of all of that for us, please? And how did you come across our show? How did you cross paths with us? Did you already know about us before last week? Yes or no, start there. And then how we cross paths and how you got into the seat, because I think other people will want to do this. Because if you have something of value, you should do exactly what Casey did. So Casey, what you did.
Okay, well, I think I'm here probably not by accident, but it felt like accident. I kind of stumbled across your show last week, and I had, April, I had seen you and Valerie talking during a live stream with Advocates for Angels, I believe it was, a few weeks ago. And again, I just kind of happened across, and, I have a real passion for helping families that are struggling with autism or struggling with children that are just not making the kinds of progress in special education that they might like to see. Families that have questions, families that are feeling discouraged. I have a real passion for partnering with them and helping them to get the information that they need, or to have a new perspective and have some encouragement. And so both times that I saw you, April, I really was excited about the message that you were bringing and the energy that you had to help and to provide a platform in which people could learn and people could openly share their thoughts and their feelings and their experiences. And so I was really intrigued with that. And I sometimes can't help myself if I see someone having, like a question about something, or particularly if I hear someone communicating something that I once used to believe, and now through experience I've learned that maybe it's not like that, then I really have a hard time restraining myself and holding back, because I am a board certified music therapist, and I was a board certified music therapist for about 18 years, specializing in autism before I knew what I know now. And I didn't serve a lot of my clients and a lot of the families that I worked with as well as I could have, because I didn't have good information. And in fact, because I had misinformation a lot of the time. And the way that I was trained, although, I had excellent training, it was based on what we knew at the time. And I had been busy in the field and, had not really had the time to delve into the research that was coming out. And I thought I knew what I knew, right? I thought I was really good. In fact, people called me an autism expert. So as a side note, I don't believe there are any autism experts out there unless you actually have autism and experience it every day. I feel very strongly that I have learned my most important lessons about autism from self-advocates and from individuals that actually experience what it's like to be autistic. And that for me kind of changed everything. So, after having opportunities to understand more clearly and to have a very significant paradigm shift in my whole understanding of autism, I really haven't been able to turn back. And I've wanted to go forward. I already had a music therapy clinic, but then started a nonprofit, which I think I may have mentioned last week. Optimal Rhythms is our nonprofit, and we are really committed to being a vehicle by which people can get good information, that they can help sort through maybe misinformation or myths or experiences that didn't go well, but they were beating themselves up about why it didn't go well. They thought that they were a bad parent, or they thought they were a bad teacher, or they were a bad paraprofessional, or they were a bad whatever, but it was simply because they didn't understand what was happening with the child. And that in many cases, my true passion is working with children and young adults that are struggling with communication, that have communication, what I call complex communication challenges, and complex sensory motor challenges. So that was kind of a lot of blah, but that's kind of who I am and why I'm here, and why I felt like it would be exciting to have a conversation more in depth about some of the things that I've learned.
Wow. Okay, so 29 things. First thing, hi, Valerie. So Valerie's our co-host, and she has a town hall that is one day after our show tomorrow on Wednesday, and I'm gonna let Valerie like do her thing in just a second because Valerie, we have this special guest. Say hi to Casey. Casey, say hi to Valerie.
Hey, Valerie.
Hi, Casey. How you doing?
Great. Nice to see you again.
You too.
Clearly, they know each other. You could just tell by how happily they greeted each other.
But now, tell me what your profession is again.
Well, I'm a board certified music therapist.
Okay.
And I currently run a education program and a nonprofit for families affected by autism.
Nice. Loving that.
Yeah, so you need to tune in again because she gave a good, I don't know, 5-6 minute opening introduction. So Valerie, what we're doing here before we get into your thing here really quick, and I want to play the clip from last week as well, is I don't want to lose my thoughts. I have 29 thoughts, 29 questions I want to ask Casey and or have her unpack. But the main thing I want to do right now is I want to show people how easy peasy, is that a professional word? Okay, I think I said that once before. It is to get on the radar of the right people. But you have to know where to be. Social media is not the same as being social. Last week, Casey was not doing social media. I don't know, Casey, if you have a degree in social media or not, if you're a YouTuber, if you are a LinkedIner, or, where all you do, what all you do. But I've always said from the very beginning when social media started to become social media, that was around 2003. When Google bought Blogger, I said, oh my goodness, this is it. This is it. There's no rules in social media. If you go to teacher A or teacher B, they're going to teach you something different on how to do social media. We don't teach you how to do social media. We want to teach you how to be social. And it sounds like, Casey, you already know how to do that. You already know how to get your message out because I heard you very clearly. I'm intrigued. I love the way you showed up. You're very professional, yet very casual at the same time, because I can engage you in a one-to-one or group conversation like this, and I think you feel at ease in both settings. Is that true?
I would say so, yes.
And so are you looking to be a guest on various podcasts or live streams or other people where they have communities that you could tap into and make it a win-win, mutually beneficial situation, yes or no?
Absolutely, yes.
So that's what we're doing and what we're getting into. Valerie, I said Casey did the right thing. Now, Casey, are you part of Valerie's tribe? So what we would say, hashtag Valerie Aprahamian tribe. So would you have come from her tribe to see our show because we've collaborated with Valerie? So I think that's what you heard, right? That's how you first came across April and myself.
Right. That's how I first came across all of you was through, I think, Valerie's page or Valerie's live stream, and the message was ringing very clear with me, and I'm so appreciative of people that take the time and energy that it takes to advocate and to really help people get good information, because as I mentioned, I myself didn't have good information for so long, and it really affected my work and affected my ability to really be helpful to families. And so I think that that's such an important piece of it, is to know, first of all, who can you trust, who has the right good information. And, you can just sense when people are really genuine and really there to help. And,
I think so too, yes.
Not just to make a dime or not just to, sell something or, and that's where I'm at. This is not about making money for me. This is about providing a service that helps a family get to the next step, or helps a family advocate for themselves or advocate for their child, or help them get the right special education services, not just special education services.
Yes.
And to know what their rights are, because so many people either feel so powerless to go forward in pursuing their rights, or they don't know how to do that, or they don't even know they have rights.
Yes.
They're so defeated that they feel like, well, nobody's going to help me, or nobody's going to listen to me, or it's not worth it. I just have to handle it myself. And I've come to know that that's not true, but there are a lot of people that are giving information, I think, for a very different reason, and families get trapped into thinking that that's the only people that exist. And so it's refreshing to hear both of you, all of you, you know, in your message to families and in your passion to really be available, to listen and to communicate and to help and to advocate. So I'm happy to be with you this evening.
I love that. And it sounded like Valerie was talking. Valerie, did you pass her your notes? I mean, this is what Valerie has been saying the whole entire time. This is amazing. So I'm the one-liner guy, Casey. So when I hear people talk, it's like 2 or 3 or more one-liners come to mind. Here's the one that comes to mind here. So let me just play this out with you since you're new to this. So I'm going to put you on the spot of which you don't have, right? I'm going to say, I'm going to put you on the spot, Casey. And you're going to say, Roy, I don't have a spot. And now everybody's like, oh, good, he's not going to embarrass her, blah, blah, blah. Casey, do you know that you don't know what you don't know?
Well, that's exactly. No, you don't know what you don't know.
So yes, you don't know.
I actually say that all the time.
Oh, good.
I say that all the time too.
Okay, so let's put this into perspective.
You don't know. That's
Exactly.
what you need to learn.
Right?
Exactly, and that's what I'm hearing you say, Casey, is that you knew something a little while ago and it wasn't complete and you weren't helping your families completely, and then you were feeling blank, and you'll fill in the blank with whatever, and then so you got more blank, call it information, call it wisdom, and so now you feel more empowered to do what you need to do. And we get the today version of you. Maybe it's a 2.0 version of you. I don't know. That's what April's all about. So yeah, I was like this. I thought like this. I taught like this. But now I'm knowing more and I'm doing more and I'm feeling blank for that, which is like empowered is what I'm hearing you say. And it's not about the money. Hey, you got to need to buy my program, so I'm going to make something up. It sounds good. People are after it. So let me finish what I wanted to work out with you. So Casey, yes or no? Do you know that you don't know what you don't know?
I do now.
Yes.
So that's a yes, right? So you say yes. You don't know what you don't know. And that's, everybody doesn't know what they don't know.
Everybody.
So then the next thing I say, because I'm going somewhere, this has a point, and I want to grab this as a big soundbite. So the next thing I say is, okay, so Google is going to do you no good if you don't know what you don't know. And here's why. Because you will never search for that which you don't know to search for. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, if those two things are true, then the only way that you're going to learn what you don't know is to get with somebody who does. And that's where you come in, Casey, because we now know you and we know what you're doing, so to speak, just from the title. But now we want to go deeper and get to know how, when someone crosses our path, when we ask them a question or two or find out that they have this issue, oh, you know what? You need to talk with Casey. Because we're already doing that with Valerie. It's like, oh my goodness, IEP? It's like, okay, Valerie. Because most people don't know what Valerie knows. And they're not going to find it on the internet, because even if they go looking for IEP blank, IEP solutions, I need help with IEP, whatever it is, they may or may not run into the right person, like you said, that's going to give them the right information. And so this all ties back into what April and I are doing, because that's exactly the reason we were talking with Valerie, because I snatched Valerie out of a Zoom. I did. I snatched her. I said, hey, you don't know what you don't know, what we're doing. So come over here and find out what we're doing. So we kind of collaborated together. And here you are, Casey, because of what Valerie was doing. You were in Valerie's group, tribe. You showed up. You said a few syllables. We went live. You liked it, because April and I are about not texting. If we'd have done all this in text, you probably wouldn't be sitting here.
Correct.
And we said, Valerie, let us tap into your tribe and let's put this live. And so all they have to do is look at the lower part of their screen, right? You saw the lower part of your screen. You said, somebody's live. Who's live? What are they doing? This, that, and the other thing. Or you got some sort of a notification. You clicked on it, and there we were talking about something that is passionate for you. Casey, true that?
Yes.
And that's how you got on the show with us, right? And I love that. So we need to share this with other people, because people want to get on each other's podcasts. They want to get on each other's live streams, but they're not doing it this way. Because if somebody engages with us in the comments, April and I are jumping in on that and going like, you need to join us on the show. So I love this. April, do you have any thoughts real quick before we go on to Valerie? Because
like a billion and
I
one.
know, me too. I don't want you to lose any of it though. So
Well,
what stood out for you with?
But before you go on, I want to know how Casey knows Valerie, because Casey, do you have somebody that you're close with who has autism?
I have lots of people that I'm very close with that have autism, or have children with autism. I've been in this field for a little over 20 years. And like I said, for the first part of it, I was just a therapist that thought I knew, and now I have much better information. And like I said, I've been running a nonprofit for about 6 years, where we've worked very, very closely with families. We've done a lot of advocacy. We've had a school, a classroom that we operate every day for students that were just not able to get what they needed from the public school setting, and for kids that were just really underestimated and misunderstood in that setting. And we designed our program to create a bridge of communication, to create a model that people could look at and say, oh, that's how that works. And, we've had a lot of bumps in the road because there's so much resistance to change. There's so much resistance to doing something other than what we've always done. Yeah. And people just don't have good information. They don't. And like you were saying, Roy, I say that all the time. People don't know what they don't know. Parents don't know what they don't know until they hear a different perspective. Yeah. And as I mentioned before, sometimes I think hearing from self-advocates that have been there and have come out of
people in the trenches. People in the trenches. Yeah.
That had access to one type of service, and then they got, other types of supports and accommodations, and it changed their life. Yeah. And then they have a capacity to be able to share their story. And those stories are so valuable and so powerful to be able to change the future for so many. So that's kind of our focus.
And that's what we want. We want those stories. So keep that in mind, Casey. Send at least one person a week. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. So with that in mind, April, if there's anything else you want to do beforehand, so I found out something, Casey, from Valerie last week, that she has a town hall, and she'll let you know where to go if you want to join her on her town hall. It's tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern. So she's Pacific. It'd be 5 o'clock for her Pacific. Where are you, Casey? Are you what time
I'm in
zone?
Indiana. I'm on Central Time.
Oh, so you're Central. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, I always like to go by Eastern Time. That way it's easy for everybody to figure out, because if I say Eastern Time, you immediately know, Casey, what time it is for you, correct? Mm-hmm. If I say Pacific Time, you might have to think about it for another 2 or 3 seconds. But that's just, the world clock, so to speak. So, I want to play this. I'm going to have April set this up for us. So, April, last week when we were in the town hall with Valerie, she shared something so valuable. Because let me back up. So Valerie helps parents with special needs kids. A lot of them are autistic. She has an autistic child who's now an adult. I think 28, Valerie, is that correct?
Yes.
So she has a lot to draw on, and she's so passionate about helping people with their IEPs. And I don't know what it stands for yet, but it's to help your special needs kid. I barely know how to spell it, guys, because usually I don't even get it in the right order. I know it's pie, but what order do I put it in? So IEP, yeah. And anyway, so I'm listening intently to what she says, because the lady is full of wisdom that I don't know nothing about that. Her and I had like a 2.5-hour conversation before any of this even happened, and I just loved her passion and where she was going. And the main question I asked her was, so I like what you're saying. I can get on board with that. We have overlap. I can help you. You can help us. So are you going to be doing this for just 2 or 3 more months, 2 or 3 more years? Are you in it to win it? Are you going to do this for the rest of your life? And she said, I'm doing this. Been doing this. So yeah, she's a lifer. Anyway, with that in mind, last week she said something like, put it in writing. I'm going to just say that's the title. Put it in writing, because a lot of parents don't know how the other side hears what they're saying. So when you're in an IEP meeting, you're saying something to the teacher, the administrator, whatever, whoever, and then they write it down with a bias. And you'll listen and you'll hear Valerie say this, and that just blew me away. It's like, what? And Valerie can get into it a little bit more after I play this clip to let you know exactly why they do that, right? Why they put their own spin on it. So let me play this, guys. Valerie, I want to jump in real quick. That was amazing. My brain is on fire. I see that you're recording. I didn't record this. Can we get this clip or just the whole recording? I'd love to play it next week. If you'd like to be there, I'm going to play this for people. They need to know this. It's like, I did not know this. I probably would have just said something. And what really got me, and I hope it got everybody else, is even though you say these words to them, they're going to put it in, what did you say? District speak or
biased. They diminish parents' words.
That got me, like, it penetrated my heart. It's like, I don't want that to happen. So therefore, put it in writing. And I don't know how many times, every time I hear you speak, you're always telling us, put it in writing, put it in writing, put it in writing, because if you just say it, nothing happens. So Valerie, I just want to just thank you for that. And yes, please, I'd like to have a clip of that session and play it next week. People need to hear this, like, a lot. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the first thing I teach parents is Parents Advocacy 101. Rule number 1 is put it in writing, everything, because that is the way you make sure things happen. When you tell your teacher something or just say something, the words just float out into the universe and go away. And,
so true.
And I have parents come to me and go, I asked for this or that 6 months ago. I haven't heard a word about it. Or a year ago. Did you put it in writing? No, I told my teacher. Or no, I mentioned it at the IEP meeting. Well, did they write it down in the IEP? No. Well, that's why it's been a year since nothing happened. So everything has to be put in writing. If you say it in an IEP and they don't write it in the IEP, you make sure you ask them, can you please document that in the IEP that I requested this? Because if they can get away with it, they will, because then they're not held accountable to doing anything. And the second something's put in writing in your IEP or even in an email, a timeline immediately goes into effect. That's an IDEA. Timelines, okay? Protecting our rights so that they can't delay things. So when you put something in writing, whatever it might be, there's different timelines for different things. So I'll give you an example. So if you ask for an assessment in California, it can change, it can vary in different states. So you have to look up your timelines in your state. But for an assessment, if you ask for an assessment in writing from that day that the district receives that email, they have 15 days to get you what's called an assessment plan, which is your authorization to say the district is going to assess because you asked for it. Here's, sign this assessment, parent, giving us authorization to assess your child. They have 15 days to do that. Then from the day you sign that assessment plan and you email it back to them, from that day you mail it back, they have 60 days to conduct the assessment on your child and call an IEP meeting before that 60th day. If they go past those timelines, that's a violation of federal law, and you can file a compliance complaint on them. So that's the power of putting things in writing. Things get done then.
Valerie, I want to... I'm hearing a tab open. Yeah?
I think that might have been me. Sorry about that.
No worries. So powerful stuff for me as a parent of a severe autism laden young man who just turned 10, my bonus son, April's son. And it was like, wow, they're going to put their own spin on it. That just resonates in my head, because that's one of my biggest pet peeves is when I say something, the words that are coming out of my mouth, if you share that with someone else, quote me correctly. Say correctly what I said. Don't put your own spin on it. And if they're going to do this with our kids, Valerie, why do they do that?
Why do they do that? Because parents don't know what their rights are. And if parents don't know what their rights are, then they're going to take advantage of that. So the first IEP meeting parents go to, the district will, I call it, size you up, and they'll determine, does this parent know their parent rights, or IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or your state law? They will be able to know that by the end of that IEP meeting. And then they will act accordingly. And so you will get misinformation, disinformation, and you'll get misled. if you don't know those things, because parents naturally trust the school district. They're the educators, they're the professionals, we're the parents. Of course, they're going to give me the right information. Of course, they're going to do the best for my child. Of course, they're going to meet the needs of my child. I'm trusting them. They're going to do what's right. Until a parent has their, what I call, aha moment, something happens and they find out, hey, that's not right. I just met a mom that's getting this or that. My child should be getting this or that. Why isn't my child getting it? And they start investigating and they start finding out things that they were misled or led astray or told misinformation. And then they start having their wake up call and they start finding out what their parent rights are, what's really available. And then the curtain starts coming, being uncovered, what's behind the curtain, which is the bureaucracy of the school district. Because it's just the way Congress set it up to be adversarial this way, the us against them mentality, which it shouldn't be. We should be a team. We're a team for the benefit of this beautiful child to reach their potential. But yet we're set up pitted against each other because of money, because IDEA has never been fully funded since the day President Ford signed it into law in the early 70s. They've never fully funded it. So it's a bureaucracy and it's about short-term profits. And that's why. In a nutshell.
Ladies,
Boom.
Does that suck or what?
Yes, it sucks. It really sucks.
It's so true.
Talking about children's futures, children's lives, children's reaching their potential, children's education. It's everything. And
I feel bad for the educators because the teachers who get into the profession of helping our kids do it from such a place of passion. And oftentimes they get so frustrated because they want to tell you things that they're not allowed to tell you. And sometimes they tell you anyway. And they can only fight so much without losing their job.
Yeah.
They get actual gag orders put upon them. But don't tell parents. Don't tell them how to ask for things, what's available, the buzzwords to say, to set things into motion. Don't tell them you're a district employee. That's what they do, which is opposite of the team. We're supposed to be an IEP team. So, this is in writing in the law. This is what it's supposed to be. This is the intent of the law. But is that happening in the trenches? Absolutely not. It's not happening, which is why parents have to learn to advocate, or you're never going to get the education your child needs and deserves. And that's the sad truth about it.
I want to ask Casey if this is her situation as well. Right before I do, Valerie, let people know where they can find you on the internet so that they can find out more about IEP that they didn't know what they didn't know. So where can we find you?
My page, my Facebook page is Advocates for Angels, and it's plural, advocates for, and it can number 4 angels, and it's both. It's 4 and FOR. My website is advocatesforangels.com. It's my website, and my Facebook is Advocates for Angels as well. That's the name of my company. And so either one of those, you can find me. And I posted, right now I'm doing a membership for parents at a very, very low cost. And the reason I developed this membership is because I want to help parents right now with the current situation, the most relevant problem with our children's education, which is distance learning, because kids in special ed are not receiving anything now. I mean, some districts, you might be getting some speech and language virtually, maybe, but that's about it. In terms of education, academic instruction, if you're in public school, you're probably not getting any kind of academic instruction from your teacher. And it's all placed upon the parents now. So all of a sudden, parents have become the educator, the speech and language pathologist, the occupational therapist, the one-on-one aide, the behavioralist, and without, how do parents know how to do this? They're not trained. They don't have the knowledge or ability to do so. So kids aren't getting anything, and their whole routine has been disrupted. Their daily lives, there's structure, which kids on IEPs need this structure, need the routine, and everything is gone haywire, and parents are overwhelmed. Parents call me crying every day. Kids escalating in behaviors, their sleep patterns, their eating, everything this is affected. The mental health of parents are struggling now. So that's why I developed the membership, because I want parents to know these are your rights. This is what you can do to ensure that next year, when we open up again, and we're probably going to still be in virtual schooling of some way, shape, or form, that if you want to ensure this doesn't happen again, what happened in March, April, May, and June doesn't happen again next year, then you need to learn your rights, and this is how you can do it. And because IDEA is still in effect, Secretary DeVos did not waive IDEA. She did not give the districts a pass. And so we should still be receiving our child's IEP virtually. Now, yeah, it's going to look a lot different, but your child should still, IEP is still in effect, and you should still be receiving those supports and services. So I put that in the chat, that link, if you want to look.
Oh, sure. April, can you do that? I just want to say that if you're not following or subscribed to Valerie, or want to take a quick look at her membership site that she's doing, I want to vouch for her. I've known her a little over 2 months now, and this lady knows her stuff, and she stays on top of everything. So if you do a search in Google for this, that, and the other thing, and if you don't know how to use the filters to search within the last hour of somebody posting something, or the last week, you may get something from 2 or 3 years ago. But Valerie is cutting edge. She always brings us the most relevant information, and I love that about her. So I'm glad she's part of what we're doing in the world, and I hear that Casey's doing the same thing, that these two ladies are advocating for you, the parents of special needs kids, mainly autism, I'm hearing, because I think that's the biggest group. And there's so many moms and dads out there who are just looking for this type of information. They can't find anything because they don't really know what to look for, like I said earlier. So we want to get this information out. Go ahead, April.
So Casey, with your nonprofit, are you working with families virtually right now?
Yes, we are. We're going into our summer program, and normally we do a 6-week camp called Can Do Camp, where kids come to us, and we focus on a lot of the neurologic aspects of autism that are oftentimes missed. We really help them with purposeful movement and regulation and communication. And so this summer we've had to get really creative, but because we've been providing music therapy through telehealth, and it's actually been going really well, we've learned that this is actually a solution to one of the problems that we've had with our camp in the past. And what I mean by that is we've had a fabulous camp experience. We've had these intense trainings for our staff. They learn what they need to learn. They engage with the kids. The kids have this fabulous experience. And then the parent comes to pick them up, and we share all these things that their child did. And the parent looks at us like, how did that happen? Like, how is that possible? Because the parents aren't getting the training. The parents don't get the piece that is so crucial for them to carry that over then to home. And we see the sadness in the kids' eyes, like, please teach my mom, please teach my dad, you know?
Yes.
And sometimes they communicate that, you know, that they're worried about going home because they want to be able to continue that success, or they want to be able to be understood the way that they were understood at camp. Yeah. So in telehealth, even though, you know, for a lot of families, it's been a major adjustment and it's been somewhat stressful, we've really had some incredibly positive outcomes where the parents have been right there to see what the child can do. And we've been able to coach them and provide training to them to give them skills to support their child to do things that they didn't ever know their child could do, or they didn't know, maybe they could sense that their child could, but they didn't know how to get it out of them. And I think that's the case so much of the time. So we decided to bite the bullet and go ahead and do our camp, but to do it, so we're doing Can Do Camp Home Edition. And what we're doing is we are training, for those of families that are local, we have some families outside of our area that have signed on for camp. But for families that are local, we are training a camp coach to go into the home, providing that family is comfortable with that. So one person going to one home to provide support during the camp experience. So we have some, it's all virtual in that we're all staying together, but we have breakout sessions that we're going to do. There'll be a music therapist overseeing every 2 campers and providing music therapy, neurologic music therapy supports. And we're super excited. We think it's going to be incredible, very different, but incredible for the families to get those experiences in their home and to have us help problem solve different experiences that they get stuck in at home, that we can't ever experience that or help them problem solve it when we're at the clinic or when we're in our classroom, because those same things don't happen there that happen at home. So we'll see how it goes, but we're really excited.
It's like generalization is embedded. You don't have to do generalization because it's all happening at the same time.
Exactly.
That's awesome. And you can also reach more people because it's virtual, not just your local area. But if you're in the local area, you get the extra benefit of having a counselor come to the home, which is really cool.
Right.
I love it. Yeah,
but
there are positives to the virtual. There are. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we have to focus on those strengths, and then the families that are missing that, like, figure out how to make that a positive experience for them. And I do really feel like, as you mentioned, the parents are having to put on all these hats and take on all these roles. And part of that is because the virtual thing is happening without any parent training. And that's it. We have discovered in 6 years of running our programs and doing, year-round programs, that we have a demographic here where most of our parents are working during the day. Most of them can't just come volunteer at school every day and get training. They really, they're trying to make ends meet and raise a special needs child and be all things to all people and keep their sanity. So we understand the barriers to them getting that type of support for the parent. But we also have seen that when the parent can get that support and get the coaching and get the training that they need, they feel so much more equipped to support their child. And they don't feel, I often talk about how I sense that parents, from the time their child is diagnosed, that they're almost given this message of, you're not enough. You now need this expert and this expert and this therapist and this doctor and this physician and this hospital and this. And the message to the parent is, you can't do this without all these experts. And I told you what I've learned about experts, right?
I can second that.
Right. But when you get to the point where that parent and that child can work together, and you have really solid strategies that help them communicate together, even if they have a non-speaking child, there are ways for them to communicate. And when that can happen, then there's so much more like trust, and there's so much more development of relationship that is so important for that child to have confidence in the relationship, and for that parent to have confidence in the relationship.
I love that you're bringing parents into focus of this, because that is super huge. I feel like there's a lot of parents who, because they have such a full schedule, they kind of just hand their child off. I will admit, here, school, do what you can.
Do this. Yes.
He's not with me most of the time. And so there is that missing element that I don't, and I talked about this in one of our shows, that I don't get to see what they're doing in school. I don't get to witness how he's engaging, where he's kind of falling short in what they're working on, so that I can carry that over at home. At home,
exactly.
Yeah.
There's a huge bridge. There's a huge chasm, I believe. And now that we're going virtual and everything like that, my brain kicks in and says, Casey, not only is it just you helping the parent and the child bridge that gap that a lot of working moms and dads can't do, because I always go beyond. It's like, now let's do a group thing. Let's find another person in April's situation. Let's find another person in, Fred, Ethel, Lucy's situation, and pair them. And not only pair them, but group them. It's like, oh my goodness, here's what I learned. And so when the parents build friendships, just friendships away from the connection of autism or the connection of special needs, I really like you as a human being, like I'm doing with you, Casey. It's like, I don't just have an autism connection with you. I'm getting to know you, how you speak, how you show up, and I'm reading between the lines. I do this. We all do this. We don't necessarily judge you, but we assess you. What kind of person is she? Casey, I could talk to you for, an hour or two, not only about the autism stuff, but about whatever you're passionate about, what I'm passionate about, what overlaps. And that's what I'm looking for. Because when you get that tight bond with people, then you're more apt to go deeper and ask deeper questions, because you're not afraid that person's going to look at you and look cross-eyed or roll their eyes going like, yeah, no, I don't want you to know this. It's like, I want to know everything that you are willing to share with me on an intimacy level. Friendship intimacy. Shasta Nelson says friendtimacy. You ever heard that word, Casey? Friendtimacy. Yeah. Love that. So that's what I'm going for here. And if you're not yet incorporating that or doing that or whatever, April and I and or Valerie want to jump in and go like, well, we could provide this, and this. And again, it's not about the money. It's about providing this information for them. And then when they find out, oh, you have this course, you have that membership site, you have this, they will want to go deeper with you. It's like, I want more from Valerie, because I hear she's a wealth of knowledge. I haven't found anybody like that on the internet. I'm hearing about Casey, and people will want to give you, a deeper dive if you have that for them. And if you don't, you can go like, oh, there's a need here. Let me make a membership site, just like what Valerie's doing. So, Casey, does this sound like something that you might want to peruse with us? As a collaboration, as an overlap or whatever, because I'm all about creation, co-creation and connection and collaboration.
Yes, absolutely. Me too. I know that there's so many barriers to people getting the information that they need. And any way we can open a door, or like you said, collaborate. I'm all about collaborating. I just think that it teaches me. I learn something new every day, and that really excites me. And then I also love that I can use my life experience and my professional experience to help someone else, to engage someone else in a conversation that they haven't ever known they needed to have before.
Yeah, exactly.
And the nonverbal conversation for parents is so needed, because so many of those parents believe, well, my child's never going to be able to talk, and the school district isn't doing anything to help them. They've been working on PECs for 10 years and they haven't made any progress, right? And
right.
I'm like,
at what point do you realize this is not working?
No. So, but the other thing on the virtual point was what I love about it is that now, before it was always about from the school district's perspective, or an educator in a school district's perspective was, confidentiality. You can't see any of the other kids in the class, or I don't want to be on videotape, or I don't want to be recorded. But now, guess what? Everybody's on videotape on Zoom. Everyone's being recorded. So all that's blown out the window now. So now we all have to collaborate together, and we have to, all this, confidentiality is no longer. All of a sudden, boom, gone.
Yeah.
So now, let's get those videotapes in the classroom so parents can be watching. I mean, I know so many non-public agencies that have amazing technology departments, and they have video cameras all throughout the whole non-public school in every class, where parents can just go online and they can hone into, oh, my child's in this room right now, and watch what their child's doing during the day and learn, oh, look what they're doing. Oh, it's built-in training.
It's win-win.
Collaboration. Yes. And that's the way it should be. So for that, I'm happy about that.
So I want to touch on that. Exactly. Valerie, thank you for bringing this to mind, because April, weren't you, what was it? Cameras in classrooms, or cameras for classrooms. And you were like fighting.
Yeah. I actually got a Facebook page for cameras in the classrooms for Tennessee, because I connected with, and now you've triggered me, the lady whose last name I can't remember, but her name is Tara Heidinger. She's based in Ohio, and she started up that movement in Ohio, going to the congressman and the Senate. And I mean, she just really went all in. Mm-hmm. And now she's got this huge movement where people have pages with that same standardized naming convention, cameras in classrooms, followed by the state name. Yeah. And she's a wealth of knowledge about how to get that implemented if you don't have a law in your state on that. And I need to get her on this show now that you said that. But that is something that I was fighting for my son, because we had one of those bad apple teachers who somehow remained under the radar until she couldn't anymore. And she even got kicked out of the previous school she was in. And nobody knew that until we went digging through old archived news articles, and they cleared her, and they let her return to the classroom. And I don't know, like 6 of us kept our kids out of school for 2 months because we refused to send them back. We went to the school board. We spoke at the meeting as a group because Parents United, it's a powerful thing.
Yes.
And we asked for cameras in the classroom because they have it in the common areas. Like, Valerie's saying, they can make it happen everywhere else. So why not in a special needs classroom?
Yes.
But that never happened because nobody followed up.
Yeah, and now it's we're pivoting to where it's going to happen, but not for the same reason, because that was for safety. Let's have these cameras in there for safety. But I like what the future looks like here, very, very close future, very near future, to have a classroom where you can just go into a URL on your phone, on your desktop, and look at your child anytime you want during the school day. And they're going to have to be held accountable. And so if they know the cameras are on them, there's going to be less blank as far as the safety that takes place, and a lot of less goofing off, because some teachers might goof off because they think, this is a lost cause and I'm just going to say that I did it or whatever.
And let's be honest, the cameras are not going to pan the whole classroom. You can have a camera that's focused in one spot from way up on that high ceiling in the corner, and just focus it in a corner where you bring the child. It's not like they're going to be looking in the bathrooms. So
right. That's
and I, look at us. All good teachers, that they're not the ones that are fighting it, because they're good teachers. They have nothing to hide. They good teachers invite parents into the classroom. Yeah, come visit the class. I'd love to show you what your child's doing. It's the teachers that
have something to hide. Yes,
a reason to So anyway, I think this is going to advance that narrative for now that we're in a virtual world.
If I can just mention too, I think that another piece of the training that has been lacking is educators don't have training to work with some of the individuals that they're put on task to work with. Paraprofessionals do not receive, they're hired and thrown into a classroom. They don't receive the training. I hear from so many paraprofessionals that say, if I'd only known, like maybe they go through one of our trainings or come to we do a Rethinking Autism conference. If they come to our conference and they're like, oh my word, like if I had known this, I would have done things so much differently. I'm like, I've been there, I know. But if we don't invest in the training of these staff, then we can't expect them, we expect them to be compassionate and we expect them to act like human beings, but we can't expect them to know what to do. Right. We have some children that are served in public schools that are really challenging. They have really challenging bodies. They have really challenging sensory systems. Yes. They have behaviors that they've had to develop to try to get attention or to try to, overcome some of the other challenges that they've had or to responses to trauma. Absolutely. And if we don't have people that are trauma informed and that have training in that, if we don't have people that understand that this child is not speaking, not because they have a cognitive delay, they're not speaking because they have a motor disability, and that motor is speech and language is cognitive. And so they're two very different things. And if we keep talking to this child like they don't have cognition, but they have full awareness and full, language capabilities, but they can't express that, then, we're never going to meet that child's need academically because we're never going to have the right expectations for them academically. So I think maybe if we can push for, like you say, dropping that guard about having cameras, then we're going to notice how little is happening in some of our classrooms where a lot more could be happening. And two, I think we would put pressure on the administration to provide training. Yes. So that it looks like they know what they're doing,
Yes. It's everything will be exposed then.
Yes.
Parents, we know this, but it's like we can't prove it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then it'll be all, the curtain will be drawn and it will they'll have to take more accountability because it's totally that they hire these aides that all they need to have is a high school diploma and a clean background check and go, okay, here, your first day of work, you're in room 4 and your child's name is Susie Miller and she's on the spectrum and go See ya. They have no training. And it's just so insane. And then when
Wow.
we ask the district, we want, 50 hours of evidence-based practice training. And then you have to fight for that. Where it should just be a given that aid is absolutely given that without parents having to fight for it. Yeah, it's just so many things like that.
Again, it goes back to what I love to say, my one-liner. The way you see an autistic child is the way you treat that autistic child.
Yes.
And the way you see the parents of that autistic child is the way you're going to treat the parents of that autistic child. So it's all about perception. And that's what I'm hearing Casey say. I've heard Valerie say that from day one. And I'm glad that the two of you are crossing our paths at the time that you are here. We've been doing this for 4 years. I told April in the very beginning, I said, you're local. What was it that you were doing locally?
I wanted to start a local nonprofit here.
Yeah, it was just too small. You needed to go bigger because you never would have run across Casey and Valerie if you would have kept up that. So when I entered her life, I said, you know what? I want a 24/7, because that's been my dream for decades, to have a 24/7 channel, if you will, where we can have these types of discussions in these types of rooms and have people lead the way. So Valerie's doing her town hall. She's doing it on Zoom right now. I would love to bring people to Valerie who need what Valerie is sharing and saying for that hour a week. Same thing with Casey. Casey, if you're doing something live and it's public or private or whatever, this is what April and I are building. We're building a people's search engine. We want people to say, hey, you need help with blank or blank, then...
To that point, I wouldn't even know there was such a thing as a neurologic music therapist. So how would I know to go search for Casey?
Right.
No clue.
Right.
Yes. Or things like auditory processing disorder, and you can ask for an assessment for that. Or vision processing, and ask for a vision assessment. There's reading specialists to ask for a reading assessment, and on it goes. So, sensory integration disorder for your occupational therapy assessment in terms of, sensory integration. Most parents don't know what that is or understand that most kids on the spectrum have some type of sensory modulation issue going on, and that needs to be assessed. And assessment is the foundation for the IEP. And so if you don't have the right foundation, you're not going to have the correct IEP. So,
and if you don't have that team environment, though, it goes, I think it was Casey that was talking about this before, if you don't bring the parent fully into the process and you don't get their perspective, because the people at the school or people at even the therapy offices outside of the school system, they only see a portion of your child. They don't have the full picture. And if the parent isn't fully involved in that process, then they're going to be treating the child for the wrong things, more than likely. Like, if I didn't tell anybody how much my son loves music, they may not know. And they may not know how he responds to it because they don't see it in their environment. So I would go searching for a Casey, because now I'm like wanting to pick at Casey's brain, because my son, it's so motivating for him, music. Yeah. And I know that that's like a huge key to unlock a lot for him.
Right. Well, our program is really based on the research that has really been coming out in the last several years about movement differences in autism and how the neurologic aspects of the brain connectivity in autism leads to somewhat of a brain-body disconnect that is really so misunderstood or not even recognized in so many of the assessments that are done. And without that piece, you can totally be missing what is going on with that child. You can totally be missing what their language capabilities are. You can be missing the fact that they look like they don't want to be engaged with you, but they absolutely want to be engaged with you. It looks like they don't want to be social, but they have such a desire and such a need to be social, but they have no confidence in their body to be able to express that or to be able to respond in a socially appropriate way. So they just shut down. And from a communication standpoint, communication involves a motor need, like a motor output. Every type of communication, whether it's sign language, whether it's writing your name, whether it's speech, it all is based in motor. Yeah. And if these children, what we're now finding from research is that these children are really experiencing a motor disability, and that motor is impaired, and so they can't respond the way that other people expect them to respond. And we get so focused sometimes on speech being the only way for people to communicate, and or we put a tablet or an app in front of them, and we expect them to be able to access that completely independently with a motor disability, you know, which was my understanding forever ago. And now I realize, like, you know, if they just keep hitting the same buttons over and over and over again, that's a motor loop. That's not communication. That's, you know, there are very different things between having a motor response that is reliable and volitional, and having a motor response that is just automatic. And if they're moving only from impulse and automatics, that's not communication, and they're not getting that need met, and we're really misunderstanding what their true intentions are.
Right.
And so I think, you know, bringing some of that to light can bring so much more awareness and a very, very different approach from an academic standpoint, but also in the home.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because here's what I heard you say real quick, and then I'll turn it over to you, Valerie. I heard you say that if we didn't have the internet, if we didn't have you, if we didn't have people like you, Valerie, and the others I'm sure we're going to come across, April and I are big in body language. So a lot of us who have special needs kids, we would look at their body language the way we know how to interpret body language with the non-special needs kids, and we'd be missing the mark. That's what I heard you just say. And you focused in on that, but it wasn't aware. You weren't aware of it, or they weren't aware of it. You know, the powers that be, a few years ago. And this is something that you now are looking at, and you're at the cutting edge. So, is that, as a parent, passing that information on to someone else? It's like, hey, you need somebody like Casey, you need somebody like Valerie to help you with your child, because you can't read their body language the way that they can. Is that what you're saying, Casey? It's a motor.
More so, I think you're talking from a motor aspect, right, Casey? That they're functionally. I'm going to let you. I know you go.
Well, we are trained in our culture to size people up based on how they move, based on how they respond, based on where their eyes are in a conversation, based on whether they stop and look at you when you talk to them, and unfortunately, that leads to a lot of the strategies that we use as therapists too, to do assessments. And teachers are taught, you know, if your child is not looking at you, they're probably not listening, and they probably have an attention issue. So I'll tell you a quick story. I love this story because it just sheds so much light on how much I didn't know and for how long. So I had a young man that I worked with from age 5 until 16 and a half. And I still serve him in different capacities, but he was severely impaired from a motor disability standpoint related to his autism, but I had no clue from age 5 to age 16 and a half, right? And my interpretation of him was based on how I had been taught to assess by looking with my eyes at him. And if he responded the way that I expected, then he understood what I was saying. And if he responded differently or didn't respond, then I had to say it again, or we had to sing that song again, or we had to shake that maraca again, or we had to review colors again, or we had, you know, all this repetitive teaching kinds of things in my sessions. And for all of those years, I guarantee you on every treatment plan, there was a goal for eye contact, right? That he needed to maintain eye contact for a certain number of seconds, or he needed to maintain eye contact through an entire song, or whatever it was. Okay. So at 16 and a half, when I finally started to really delve into the research about movement differences in autism, and started to look at some other programs that were really focusing on the neurologic aspects of what these kids were experiencing, as opposed to just a behavioral response or a behavioral approach, which was kind of my focus previously. And I started to be able to support his movement to be regulated and to go in the right order. Like, you think you have an intention, you think, then you look, then you move, which is not how these kids typically move. but I helped them to regulate and slow down to be able to do that. And he started using a letterboard to communicate. And one of the very first things he said to me, once he really got in a rhythm with that and learned the skill, is he said, "Miss Casey, I can either look at you or I can listen to you. Which do you want?"
Wow.
So for all those years,
Channel.
my interpretation was that as a therapist, it was my responsibility to teach this kid to look at me when I talked to him, or when anybody talked to him, or when we did an intervention together. And I was traumatizing this child, right? I was not helping him. I was actually making things so much more difficult for him because, he later explained, I get distracted by your eye movement. I get distracted by your freckles. I get distracted by your mouth moving, and I can't hear you. I can't process all of that sensory information at one time. But if I look at the blank wall when you're talking to me, I hear every word and I know exactly what you just said to me.
Yep.
So I never from that day on have I ever written a goal related to eye contact. Right. And now when you listen to self-advocates that have these movement issues that have come into communication from people understanding what their true challenge was, not the perceived challenge, they talk about that. They talk about that the expectations that we place from a therapeutic mindset are sometimes so far off the wall from what these individuals really need and what they want. And it can just change everything about the way that you perceive and understand and partner with that person.
So they can't utilize two channels, neurologic channels at the same time. So the eye and the vision processing and the auditory processing at the same time. So, and that's, I have a similar story of a client of mine that I started working with him when his mom hired me when he was 7 years old, and now he's 22 years old. So, and all these years, they believed that he was profoundly, autistic, severely handicapped class, and that he was intellectually disabled, and on and on and on, right? So you know where I'm going there. So he's nonverbal, and so in about close to 3 years ago, she took him to a facilitated communication speech and language pathologist who also is a specialist in assistive technology. And she got him to start using a board. And then she transitioned him to a keypad. And she had to hold his shoulder and put deep pressure on his arm and his wrist and this until now he's independent. And he is so highly intelligent. He started writing with these words that were high, intelligent words. And now he writes about what's it like to be autistic, that all these years people believe that he's retarded and that they don't think that he can do anything. And he's so bored to death in his class because now he's in the adult transition class. And that it's so frustrating for him because his body doesn't work the way he wants it to. And that's embarrassing for him because he does things like stands up, sits down, stamps his feet, turns around, jumps. He does a lot of jumping. So, he's got proprioceptive, vestibular, all the OT stuff. He never got the proper OT. So now he just everything changed in his program. Now he has amazing OT. He has amazing speech. And but I'm still fighting with them on writing proper goals for him at his real level of intelligence, because we're still fighting because facilitated communication isn't research based, and it hasn't been, they haven't opened their arms. The education, doesn't believe it yet. They still think it's, foo-foo and it's not real, which it's so real. So many, kids and adults, nonverbal adults are using it, and it's opened up the whole world for them. Right. But which is sad. So we're still kind of fighting there. But yeah, that speaks to what you just said as well, because it's I think it's all overlapping too in terms of their motor skills, their auditory, visual, and all of it, the sensory integration. It all kind of overlaps one another. And that's why you have to have a comprehensive team
Yes.
of real professionals that are going to do the correct assessments, and then they talk with each other to, that's so hard to achieve.
Right. But one of the things that we keep running into, and Valerie, you may have run into this, and I'd love to hear your insights or input on where we go with this, but so many of the standardized assessments that are done from, every 3 years in the schools and things like that, they require, they're made up of tests that require motor.
Yes.
Every single test, even if it's a test for the nonverbal, blah, 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 it still requires motor.
Yep.
And so when I look at these kids now and I see, they can't slow their body down to have an intentional response. So much of it is impulsive. So much of it is repetitive, perseverative movement. Yes. But yet I need them to speak an answer, but they don't have speech. Or I need them to reach and touch an answer that they choose when they can't even stop their hand long enough to look at the choices.
Yes.
Or I need them to take manipulatives and show me what's on top and what's behind and what's under, because somehow their ability to move translates into their intelligence.
Yeah.
Right. And so what we run into is we have these kids that have been in school forever doing preschool work, very low level academic work based on what the outcomes of those assessments were.
Yes.
And then they start getting support for communication. We start working on their sensory motor system. We start looking at the neurologic aspects. We start recognizing they're highly intelligent. They have this incredible vocabulary, but they need support to get it out. Yeah. And then they say, okay, well, that's fine in school, but when we do this assessment, you're not allowed to touch them. You're not allowed to provide any of the supports that they actually get in school because we need a standardized assessment.
I know.
It's not standard. Kids are not standardized. The whole idea.
I know. That's my soapbox, is that until we change the standardized assessment for these kids, we're never going to have a proper program, because they can't take standardized assessments. It does not reflect their ability. It doesn't. It
actually puts up barriers to them getting what they need, because it gives the school an out. It says, oh, this child doesn't need that because they can't even, do third grade math, or they can't, their IQ is so low that why would you have that expectation for them?
Oh yeah.
That's a problem.
One of my kiddos on the spectrum in 8th grade, they said, "Oh no, he has to go into the functionally severely handicapped class now for high school because he doesn't have enough language and he can't hit his standardized tests. They're so low." And the mom's like, "Heck no! I know my kid's super smart and he's not doing it. He's not going to go into that class, into a severely handicapped class." So then she hired me. So now. So, in between, I got him everything he needed. I worked it all out. Now he's doing great. And today, it's about 3 years later, he's in a trigonometry class and he's the highest student in the class. And the teacher at his last annual said, he's one of the very highest students I've ever had in my whole school career in trigonometry. And this is a kid they wanted to put in the severely handicapped class and not get a diploma. So there's another story. I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
And that's the key, ladies, is the stories. We if they're not going to do what we need them to do, then we have to provide that atmosphere, that culture for them as a third party, and say, mothers, fathers, if you've been given a diagnosis or an assessment that you don't agree with, that your child is more than what they're saying you are, come join us. That's what we want to put together here. We want to put this type of environment and culture together. Show up once a week, once a month, once in a while, whatever your schedule allows, and share this live with people. It's one thing to share it, they watch a video, watch it on YouTube. It's like, that's one thing. But to share it live like this and to have that trigger in the parent's mind to ask a question or to make a comment or to come join us in a seat, that's what we want. I don't see that happening, right? So we go out and we seek support for our children, but we don't see the kind of support that we want. Most of the support groups out there are all like complaining about everything. Mm-hmm. And, you get caught up in that. It's like, I don't want that kind of support. I want the kind of support that I'm hearing here right now. Valerie didn't know she was going to share those stories. Casey, you didn't know you were going to share those stories, but you both knew you were going to be on the show tonight. So when we get here, it's just a completely different environment, and we free fall it. It's not like, okay, Valerie, you got a script, you're going to stick to it, and Casey, there's people that do that, but we don't want that. We want people to just, as I like to say, come out of the woodwork. Like, how did you cross our path? With all these technology platforms that we have, somebody's got to see what we're doing and jump in, and then it takes off, because it's like, oh my goodness, I have this to add to the support, and I have that, I have the tires, I have the wheels, I have the the upholstery, and let's build a car.
And next week, hopefully, if her schedule works out, we met a young girl. Actually, today was her 24th birthday. She is on the autism spectrum, and she's agreed to come on and talk about her life as a person with autism, and her sister may even join her to talk about a sibling's perspective. So we want to see more of that with, like you said, the self-advocates. We want to hear from the people who are actually living this life.
Woohoo, Lori, let's do this, she says.
If I could get inside my son's brain right now, just crawl up in there, like I hunger for that, to know what's going on in his brain, because today he did something he normally doesn't do. He never gives up his iPad for hunger, no matter how hungry he is. I'm like, "You're hungry?" He's like, "No." Today he got up after he pointed, and I'm like, "What are you pointing at?" And he's pointing. I'm like, "What do you want? Tell me, show me." And he got up, he got his little table, he brought it in, and I'm like, "No, baby, you're going with your daddy for lunch today." And he got super upset when his dad got here. He took him into the garage to go greet him, and he just started boo-hooing, because I don't know if he was super hungry, because I was like, "You can't eat right now." I gave him a snack, but he went to go open the freezer. I'm like, "No, you're going to lunch." And he cried all the way to the gas station with his dad to go fill up the van. And I still don't know what set him off. And if I could just.
And this was different. Yeah, this was different than ever before. Yeah. That never happened before. So to get into the psyche of our children, just like what you're saying, Casey, and what you're saying, Valerie, that I thrive on these stories. I mean, I'm listening to Casey share, and then Valerie got triggered by it, and she shared her story. And I'm like, I would love to meet these children and their parents and have them on the show, and have you have them on the show, and just get their message out to all these places, because they're probably not doing it. They probably think, oh, this is just my story. But to me, it's an amazing story, and it needs to be told. When anybody says, "Hey, I'm going to tell you a story," it's like, I perk up. I'd rather have that than just content or information. And Casey, you perked me up when you said, "Let me tell you a story." And then Valerie's got her story right behind your story. And if there were other parents in here, or educators like yourselves, then yeah, we would have heard 4 or 5 or more stories all along the same lines. And that's very encouraging to us, because the lady or the 24-year-old, young lady that April's talking about for the show next week, I was listening to her the first time she went live on YouTube. And she's very well spoken. And she said she was nonverbal for 5 years. And now she talks like, if she didn't tell me she had autism, I wouldn't have known it. Very, very. She held a show on her own for an hour and a half, and ask me any questions, I'll tell you. Very open young lady, and so more people need to see this. It's like, you can't. Some people say, "Oh, he doesn't look like, or she doesn't look like they have autism." It's like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a spectrum. Mm-hmm. They don't look a certain way. Yeah.
So we don't want to keep you guys forever, because I know time flies when we're having fun. It's 10:17 here on the East Coast. I do want to put this up. So optimalrhythms.org is Casey's website. And do you have a Facebook page or YouTube channel or anywhere else you want people to find you?
Optimal Rhythms is also our Facebook page. It's Optimal Rhythms /Access Academy. A little plug for Access Academy. It's our school program, and we actually have started moving towards more of a virtual program with that as well, helping students to get access to curriculum virtually. but have the supports that they need to be able to regulate their bodies and be able to have the sensory motor input that they need, and to be able to have communication support. That's been going really well, but we still face the same prejudice and the same, discrimination. I believe it's discrimination of,
It is.
well, this child has to prove that they need this support. And like, instead of just providing the support and then seeing them succeed, it's like they have to prove every single thing.
Yes.
And they go years without the supports and accommodations that they need. And it's traumatic for them. And then we deal with post-traumatic stress disorder for them and their parents.
Wow.
And so, so our model is kind of morphing, because we definitely want to have a program that is sustainable, and we want to have a program that reaches as many families as possible.
Love that.
And there's only so many times that you can beat your head against the wall, and then finally you have to go, okay, these people aren't going to change yet, and so we have to find another way to get.
I've been doing it for 22 years, Casey.
Okay.
Yet.
Right.
Now, Casey, you say you're going into a virtual program. So does that mean that you are more local, started local, and are now expanding into the virtual? So where are you local? And where can people find you there, in case someone listens and is like, oh yeah, she's just down the street from me?
Yeah, so we're in Newburgh, Indiana, right outside of Evansville, if you've heard of Evansville, Indiana. We're right on the Ohio River, across from Kentucky, and kind of in the tri-state area, really close to Illinois as well. And so that's where our clinic is, but we really do have arms reaching out in lots of different directions. We have people communicating with us from several different countries and all across the U.S. We're doing some virtual coaching where, if a family is not finding what they need in their area, we're able to provide some coaching to them, and some both through neurologic music therapy, communication coaching, as well as just some advocacy training for parents. And then when I talk about virtual supports, we're talking about kids being in virtual school. So they have a lot of flexibility. They still can get general ed academic content, but not necessarily having to be in a classroom that may be very difficult for them because of their sensory issues and lacks of supports in that environment. So we're finding that to work really, really well, and for the students to get together, like students, kids that are struggling with these sensory motor communication challenges, getting together and having social time together, but not necessarily having to do school together, because that may be too much for them. So when they're working on school, we really want them to focus on school, and they're excelling. Another quick story, we have a student that is has a lot of speech. I wouldn't say he's highly verbal, but he has a lot of speech. But what we learned is that so much of his speech is unreliable, and it's scripting, and it's not really his intentional speech. He opens his mouth to say something, and something completely different comes out. And for most of his life, people have been responding to those loops, responding to those scripts as his communication. And it's like I was talking about before, that's not communication. That's just a motor loop. And it doesn't have anything to do with his intention. And so he had a lot of anxiety about that. And he's a kiddo that we got on a letterboard. And once he started being able to communicate, he said, I feel like my brain gets taken over by a 5-year-old. And at this point, he was 11. And, I just had to take a step back, because his voice sounded like a 5-year-old. The content, the types of things that he was saying sounded like, it didn't sound like an 11-year-old. And a lot of his mannerisms were very immature, but that's because his motor system was very immature, and people were not really focusing on helping him with that, because they were just trying to control his behavior, or really trying just to, control the verbalizations that he was having. And so that really led us to understand there's way more to this kid. Like, if he can explain that, then there's way more to him, and we need to get him a reliable mode of communication and get him the supports and accommodations that he needs. And unfortunately, after a lot of advocacy, and again, a lot of hitting your head against the wall, the local public school was just really not equipped to provide those supports or to understand what he was needing. And so he came to our program, and for the last 2 years has been enrolled in a Indiana public school that's virtual online, and he has absolutely excelled. I wish you could read some of the essays that this young man has written.
Well, we want to. Bring him. Bring it on. That's another show. I love it.
Yeah, I'd love to share some of that with you because
Please do. Please do. Don't forget.
It's such a contrast to who
Yes.
people thought he was. Looking back at,
Right.
he was in a self-contained special education
Yep.
class, doing the same thing over and
Yep.
over and over again, year after
Yep.
year after year. And now, I mean, he just finished all of his classes for a second year of high school and got credits for all of his classes. I mean, he has an AB average in every class.
Oh, I love those stories.
And he's just an incredible guy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot more of the kids are, and they are, like you said, not in the right environment and culture.
Are like
So
this.
that's what we're doing here,
Could you
Casey.
imagine? It breaks my heart when I think about these children. That it's like torture almost. That
Yeah.
they're enduring this.
It's traumatic.
Every day. And when they know inside what they're capable of, and they can't let us know that or show us that, it's just
Right.
it's horrifying.
And it's little things and it's big things, like April, when you were talking about your son getting so upset and you were trying to sort through, what is he trying to tell me? And maybe part of what he was doing was a motor loop. I mean, I think being stuck on these tablets, being stuck on iPads, sometimes it's a motor loop. They have such a hard time stopping that movement or stopping that visual input to put it aside to switch to something else. Switching is very difficult.
Right.
And, so that was probably a pretty minimal type of experience for him. He moved through it. He went to lunch, he got fed, all of that. But I mean, you think about kids really having a hurt or really having a physical need or really having a pain or really having a trauma that they're experiencing and no way to tell anyone, right? And because they say silly words or because they, go off in the corner by themselves, they don't get attention for those things. Those needs don't get met. And year after year after year, it's like you said, it's somewhat torturous, and heartbreaking to think about that. So we want to get those kids as early as possible. We want to reach their families as quickly as possible and really give them some other tools to use and really get to the bottom of why is my child having a struggle with this and how can I help accommodate them so that they don't have to continue to have those same struggles day in, day out and not feel heard and understood.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is your school, is it a non-public school?
Yes.
Okay. So the school district can fund to go there, even though that's going to be a real battle, but that is possible for parents, or parents can place their children at your school and fund themselves. Right.
But again, we've done that for 6 years. We have had children placed with us as an alternative placement.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like when kids come to camp and then they go home and the families don't have the skill. That's what we find is the schools then say, okay, well, look, their behaviors are all gone. And so now we're ready to bring them back. But what happens is that school has done nothing to get ready. They've done nothing to explore why this is working, why this child is no longer having these intense behaviors, why all of a sudden now they have communication and they're doing general ed academics. They just think we fix them and they could just go back to the same environment, to the same,
I know,
and
it makes no sense.
Clearly it doesn't make sense.
And your educators, how does this work?
I know. So I don't know. There's a big disconnect there.
Yeah, huge gap. Huge
and
gap.
I feel like, we really, really want to try to bridge that gap with information.
Yes.
But there has to be like I'm willing to receive, a collaboration, but there has to be on the other side willingness to receive information and to develop a collaboration. And there's so many reasons for them not to do that.
Yes.
And that's the sad thing.
Yeah. That is the sad thing. And so again, I think if people see what Casey was able to do with a parent who was very willing to not only take in the knowledge and the information, the new knowledge, so that they can make a new decision, they actually did make a new decision and they actually implemented. So information without implementation is not wisdom. So they're not any wiser, they just have more information. And what do they do with that? And so what does it look like if the parent actually takes Casey's information, she works with them, holds their virtual hand for a week, for a month, and then says, look at this case study that we had. Casey, that's what I would love to see. And that's the environment and the culture that I want to bring up so that people can say, okay, I want to volunteer. And Casey, you can come on the show. Valerie can come on the show once a week, once in a while, behind the scenes, whatever. And not only knowing what now to do or not to do, but to implement that and to show other families what that looks like. And maybe we can do that, two at a time, because two are better than one, right? So they see another family doing it, they see another mom doing it, and we're all about autism moms, hashtag autism moms. So maybe, and this is the collaboration that I'm talking about. This is the co-creation that I'm talking about, because we can show up here every week and give them all kinds of information, but they walk away and go like, okay, now I'm going to retain 10% of that and not do anything with it. But if we can invite them into that environment and culture that we're talking about here, and collaborate with the two of you and more people like yourselves, including the parents themselves, oh my goodness, that is my dream. That is my vision. I would be ready to go to heaven if that happened. So I just want to say that.
Yeah, so that's why I put up, who do you know that we should know? Although I put up because I'm used to saying it that way. But yeah, who do you know that we should know? And that's something that I need to get in the habit of asking anybody who comes and takes a seat with us, because oftentimes there's people we're missing out on connecting with simply because we're not asking that question. So if there's ever anyone you think we should know, just tell us.
And Casey, that's the thing, that you could go to your tribe, your group, your people, your mamas. If you have an autism mama, start with her, because that's what we're doing, Autism Mamas hashtag, and we want to really get into that groove. And bring her on and say, you know what, I would like to have a discussion with this person because I know her very well. Here's the situation like you just explained to us. You had that decade of, seeing the progress or the non-progress. And just April and I would love to just turn this over to the two of you and just have a discussion. And April and I will just drop ourselves down into the green room and just listen in. And when we have something to share, or where there's like which there won't be, like what they say, like a pregnant pause or something like that, it's like, I'm sure you'll have something to talk about. Please, that's what we're doing here. We want this to be all about the people. It's not about come see the April and Roy show or even the April show. That's not what it's about. It's the you show. Right? It's we want to know more about you, because when you start to share with us what we don't know, that helps us to be better people to serve those that we don't yet know how to serve. So Casey, please. Valerie, you have always had that open invitation. Bring somebody on, somebody new, somebody you've known for years. It doesn't matter. Just let us know, and we will we'll open up another day even, because we don't have all of our days packed yet, or a different time. So I'm glad you could both make it at this time. And so I'm going to put Valerie's stuff up here again for her. April, any last thoughts?
No, you don't want me to ask anything else, because we'll be here for another hour.
And I love that, right? Because the time just passes, and what do they say? Time flies when you're having fun. Casey, did you have fun? Give us a synopsis of what did you expect something like this from what you saw last week? Go through the whole thing. Give that other person that says, I'm so afraid to jump in a seat with that Roy guy or that April girl, or to even do this on their own. Give them your insight how this evening went for you.
Well, I've had a blast. I think that this is such a fun format. It's so casual, but yet, there's really good information being shared. Roy, I think you do a good job keeping us on track and bringing conversations around and asking questions.
Thank you.
April and Valerie, you guys are both so positive, sitting there with a smile on your face. And even though we're talking about some hard stuff, and you in your own lives, have had some hard battles that you've been up against, you're looking at the positive of it, and you're trying to march forward. And I think that is that's inspiring to me. I think that's inspiring to other parents to see, we're not here to gripe and complain. We're not here to, share all of our heartache. We're here to say, okay, let's make life better. Let's move forward. And by the way, you have rights, and you should know what those rights are. And let me partner with you.
Amen.
Let me partner to help make that a little bit easier for you to get the information that you need and to feel supported. So, so Lori's given us a reminder of a very great point, Roy.
Thank you, Lori. So this is what when people take away that one-liner, that one aha moment, or the several that I've gotten from both you and Valerie, Casey, Casey, I want to invite you personally back next week because we do have 2 guests coming and we have 2 additional seats. So if Valerie wants to be here for the whole show, because she usually comes in for her little session at the beginning, 5-10 minutes.
Have this conversation with Casey because we have so much in common.
Exactly. And then you end up staying for the people. You come for the content and you stay for the people. That's what happens. We'd love to have you here to interact with our guests next week. 2 young ladies, sisters, a 24-year-old and an 18-year-old. And, listen to their journey and then give us the aha triggers that you're coming up with. As a matter of fact, I want to say now, I'm going to make you an official co-host. So you're no longer a guest. You can jump in anytime you want. And if you say, you know what, let's do something on Friday afternoon at this time or whatever. If April can be there, she will be. If not, I can be the producer person and we can use this platform. Do you have a platform like this? This is StreamYard, Casey. Where you can just easily come and go to all these different platforms. We're going to 5 different platforms right now. And, I'd love to show you the technology behind here, this, that, and the thing. And, the free version is amazing, but you can't go to but one destination. And then if you want to go to 2 or 5, they have a paid plan that I can help you with as well, because, this would 6 seats would look like 3 on top, 3 on the bottom. And it's just amazing. Zoom has a lot of rooms. I mean, you could do 100 people, but sometimes that gets a little much. I like this environment and the culture here more so than Zoom. It's a lot brighter when we put up comments and stuff. It's just, people love that. You get to see their bright faces, and Zoom's not necessarily for that. They're more of a corporate environment. So yes, I want to open up all these doors for you. I want to give you carte blanche. Make this your show. Make this your agenda, and let's just collaborate that way. Let's just jump off a cliff and build a parachute on the way down, Casey.
Sounds great. Sounds great. There's so much need out there, and I have a lot of energy and passion to share. So I appreciate the invitation. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and share some of my story and my passion with you. And Valerie, I feel the very same way. I think we have a lot in common, and I think that we can bring our own tribes to one conversation, and that's really exciting.
Yes, that's the whole. Yes, that's the goal.
I love it. Let's do that. Yeah. Well, we'll connect. We'll connect outside of tonight.
Okay. Sounds great.
It's so nice to meet you, Casey. Thank you.
Very nice to meet you as well. And good to see you guys again.
I'm going to jump off you guys because I want to go eat my dinner.
Yeah, Valerie. Go, girl.
So, thanks again, Casey.
Thank you, Valerie.
Bye, Roy and April.
Bye.
It's always a pleasure, hon. So, are you already connected with April? April, you already connected with Casey and Facebook?
In Messenger.
In Messenger, I meant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to create a room with Valerie, me, and you, Casey, and then bring in other people as we deem for just, hey, you got a thought, you want to say something, you want to share a video with us, something just happened, breaking news, all of that. We want to give this show like an 11 o'clock news program type format, but very casual. Not all stuffy and stuff, so that we can say, you know what, we have a special segment every week. Casey's going to do it for us, and she's got 5 minutes, and, we played it at the top of the show or in the middle of the show or whenever, because that's what I want to do, because you can't always be live, but when something breaks and you want to share it with us and share it with this environment and culture that we're building, then just jump on one of these things here and just go live and speak for 5 minutes, and then hit the button and share your screen and do whatever you need to do, and send me the link to your YouTube channel, and we can play it here like I did earlier with Valerie's clip from last week on Zoom. So we have the technology. Let's make use of it, Casey.
I'm going to need a little coaching on the technology, but
I'm here to coach you. April's here to coach you. We're here to do it. It's real simple. You don't have to really even download stuff. You just have to know where to push the button, and that's it. You don't know where to push the button. You don't know what you have, the features in front of you and stuff like that. So one of the things I like to bring up, since you said this, is I want to show you the transformation that we want to help people with, including yourself. So it's this. Can you see that? I think that speaks for itself. April 1.0, April 2.0. I alluded to who you might have been based on what you knew before and how you were helping your clients and so forth, and then what you know now and how you can't not serve them. It's like I can't rest at night not knowing that I didn't at least touch a life or two today, and we want to help you. We want to help bring those people in front of you and say, oh my goodness, you need to go follow Casey, subscribe to Casey. She's got these programs over here. They're very intense and what have you, blah, blah, blah. That's what we want to do. We want to shout you out. We're not your average bear type person / entrepreneur /
We're not a one and done.
Yeah,
right?
we if you're a great guest, then we want to make you co-host. We want 121 to start with, internal, inner circle co-hosts like this, so that say April and I can't make it one night, whatever, something happens, we got to take Momo to the hospital, whatever. And we want the show to go on. And at a moment's notice, and you don't have to have anything prepared. You just go and you start talking, and we just want to make it interactive, and like this word, interactive with our live studio audience, where they come and ask questions, and you just go, okay, blah 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 blah.
Like Lori, if you're still here, I would love to know what led you here and what kept you here, because I'm crazy like that. I like to know those things, because Lori was so excited before. She said, I don't know how many calls. She said, let's do this. I don't even know now what she was talking about, what she was wanting to do. But if you want to do it, let's do it. Sure. I'm all about that.
So true confession, Lori and I work together. And she is, if you think I'm passionate, you should meet Lori. She also works in our nonprofit, and she's fabulous. And she has a heart for these kids and these families.
OMG, Lori. Co-host.
So we got to get her.
You don't even have to be a guest. You're passing that up because you have got the clout and the brand championess from Casey. She works with you. It's like, yes.
She's fantastic.
There she is. All right. Yes. Love that. So if you could be here next week, you want to jump in and connect with us in the inner circle even. Casey, would Lori be good for the inner circle so that she can catch up to speed, even so she didn't take a seat? Put your handle, which is nothing more, April, cross it on the bottom here. So what is your @name on Facebook so that we can connect with you, and we'll just add the m.me/your name. Or Casey, if you know her handle on Facebook, is it her name? Is it, help us
Lori,
with that.
What is it?
Yeah, Lori, go ahead and post it in the comments, and we'll post it here, and then we'll put you in the inner circle.
I'm afraid to go to Facebook again, or you're going to hear, I can't get my phone to hush up. But I was trying to see if we were connected.
She says, I'm not the talker that Casey is, LOL.
Oh.
I think Casey's saying, pshaw. Yes, you are. That's what I just heard. I'm reading her body language. So all I have to do is go to your friends list, and she's probably your friend.
Yes, she is.
Yeah. So that should be easy enough to figure out.
I'll connect you.
Okay. I found her. I got her.
Okay.
I'm a stalker like that. I'm like, but anyway.
Well, when there are people you need to meet, you just have to be,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. One last thing before you go, Casey. I'm very curious. MTBC, help us with that. Help us to understand that, because I know when people have, those various letters, and so help us understand that part of it, please.
So I'm a music therapist board certified. That stands for music therapist board certified. So that's the standard credential for a music therapist. And then I also have training in neurologic music therapy, which is kind of advanced practice beyond that. So, but MTBC is my credential.
I had the music therapist part nailed, but I'm like, BC brand champion, because that's
yeah, board certified. Yeah. That's great. And so we didn't even really get into it. See how these interviews, April, if you can find a lower third for that.
If I could find it.
This is not an interview. This is an interview as opposed to an outer view from people. Mm-hmm. We want to go deep with you, and we didn't even get a touch on what we really wanted you to join us here for, is how can this be helpful for people like Momo and others who blah, 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 and this and that. And we didn't even know this was available to us. The school and the aftercare program that Momo goes to, no one said, hey, maybe your son will take to music therapy, and we have this class or this person to help you with that. It's like, we don't know. Well, we don't know. So you brought that to our attention last week, but we didn't even go deep into that. And we can do a little bit next week if you can join us, even for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, because we'll give you the floor. Just tell us, hey, I only got 10 minutes, guys. But then the week after, maybe we can set that up and do a deep dive so you can show us, what it is that you're doing, you've done, and who this is for. Because I always like to tell people, don't tell us what you do, just tell us what problem you solve, Casey, and for whom.
Mm-hmm.
What does, that music therapy board certification that you have, how does that translate into solving a problem for us parents on the autism and or special needs continuum, if you will, and who's this for? Is it for the child? Is it for the parent? Is it for both of us? So you can be thinking about that's how you can. And if you have PowerPoint, that's great too. If you have, whatever, some videos or whatever, that'd be great too. Maybe you should make them. It's like, here's who I am and blah, blah, blah. Make it 3 minutes or less, a minute and a half or less, whatever. Because we're all about video. Video. And I'll let April close up with you if you have anything else. Otherwise, good night, Casey.
Good night. So I had shared our other website. So we have two websites, one for our music therapy practice and one for our nonprofit. So inmusictherapy.com is our music therapy website, and it's fairly new. So we have a lot of fresh content on there, tons of resources. So I really encourage you to take a look at our resource lists and our research lists. We have a lot of book recommendations and blog recommendations on there. So that may be really helpful. We find that families really enjoy taking a look at those. So
awesome. I have this burning question before you go.
Go for it.
This is what I was like, but if I ask a question, I know it's going to be like another hour. Because of something that you said earlier about those, like the things that we think are the problem, but they're not really the problem. What are your thoughts on, you could say pass, ABA therapy? Because that's what came to mind for me when you talk about doing the same stuff for a child that they're really like getting nothing out of, but you're making them do it anyway. And it's not the thing that's going to lead to that breakthrough for them. That's how I see ABA therapy. And she's frozen, or she's giving me a weird look. Of all places for her to freeze. Thank you, Jess Sampson, for joining.
Yeah, Sampson, thank you for joining. Casey, if you can hear us, we're going to drop you into the green room. Just refresh, and you can come back if you have time. Because, yes, she did freeze at the most inappropriate time.
It was fine the whole time. It's just frozen.
April,
Roy.
OMG, this surpassed my expectations, and I already had high expectations. If I ever said it before, like a handful of times over the last 4 years, tonight's show is going to be epic because we have somebody that came in the way that they came in, and I wanted to, yes, let's give them jazz hands.
Blab hands.
Blab hands. Yeah, we remember that from the Blab days. So Valerie only has like a 5-10 minute segment usually, and now that, so I already knew that if Valerie comes on, we have somebody that she vibes with, that she would stay a little longer, so on and so forth. So she even stayed beyond the hour. Like her show tomorrow, the town hall, it's an hour. Our show's an hour, unless of course we're really vibing and having a wonderful conversation. Because April's already like 16 minutes past her bedtime. Just to let you know, she does this kind of stuff. So. Because she's got a small window of opportunity to do this, because she's got a full-time job.
You made me yawn. Thanks.
I know, right? So she still has a full-time job, and we want to bring April home, and so we're going to add a revenue stream to all of this that we're doing, and we're doing it different than most people are taught to start an online business or to start an entrepreneurial venture on the internet. They're told do it this way or do it that way, but I don't see anybody teaching us how to do it this way. Meaning, we have we just do the meet and greet stuff, and then we find out who they are, and then we go, oh, so we should build something here instead of building something and then going looking for Casey. It's like, no, that doesn't happen that way. So Casey, don't know how much. Oh, there she is.
Here I am. I'm not sure what's happening.
Your Wi-Fi or your connection is something that's happening there.
Yeah.
But you seem to be here. So did you catch all of what April said? If not, she'll say it again.
frozen for reals. Casey, come back. It's not meant to be, Casey. You're supposed to come back another time. Wait, let's see. How about now? Okay. So real quick, did you hear what I said about ABA therapy? I was asking, like, because of the repetitive, she's frozen again. See, and I feel like she's giving me the evil eye for asking that question, but she's just frozen. Okay, Casey's clearly having technical difficulties, so I'm going to reserve. Every time I drop her back down, she's like fine, and then I bring her up and she's frozen. So Casey, I'm going to reserve my ABA question because that could truly be probably a whole nother segment.
Yeah, we'll reserve that for the opening of next week's show. Yeah. You'll ask it to her inside the inner circle. I wanted to touch on this really quick. So just Samson is who we met in another live stream. Pat Flynn has been live streaming every day during the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic that the world is experiencing for the last 64, 66, 65, somewhere around there. He's done like 64 shows. 64 days straight. And we meet a lot of people in there that come and go, and then there's the regulars and so on and so forth. And Samson, even though he doesn't have any kids, we heard that. He shouted April out.
No, he does.
I'm confusing him with?
Hey, Archer.
Okay. So sorry about that. But, so Samson does. Okay, so then my thoughts are a little different. So let me put it this way. So, got to bounce, see you in the AM. So he's assuming with that type of information,
rightly so,
that we were aware that he was here, even though he didn't comment. But he's been listening in for.
No, he did.
Oh, he did comment? Okay, so then I must have missed all of that.
You did.
So he's been here for a good portion of the show then.
And here. Yeah, he was there.
I
caught up on the comments.
Then I must have missed all of that. See, I don't care if I'm not, eloquently aware of everything that happens. What I wanted to say behind that is that Samson's never taken a seat with us. I don't know if it's his desire to do so or not, but he appreciates, I'm going to use that word, I'm going to fill it in for him. He appreciates us, the people who he built a relationship with, more so probably April, because she talks more in text with the people there than I do in the live stream on YouTube, which the comment area is a little different. But he's built a rapport, and he's also in the Slack group. So he's built a rapport with April, and he's here supporting her, and I believe he's getting value from the conversation as well. And like Casey alluded to, sometimes we just need our kids to be social with each other in a virtual environment rather than always having the educational, we're going to give you new information, content, and teaching. And I'm glad, because that's huge overlap with us. We want to be social with the parents and the kids. We want the kids to show up for each other. It's like, oh, there's another kid like me. And even if they can't convey it, because most of the people we're running into, April, they've got nonverbal kids. And
yeah, and I want to say this, because I think that there's I believe there's a lot of parents that aren't fully tuned into their kids. We live in a very on-the-go type of world. A lot of people are sleepwalking on autopilot and not really focused on every little aspect of what's going on in their child's life. And so we do depend on other people to be the eyes and ears for us, for our kids. And so I wanted to touch on real quick. Casey was talking earlier about, what I described happened with Morgan today with his episode of crying. And she said it probably was, the taking the iPad away and disrupting that pattern that he's used to. But because I'm so tuned into him, I'm so keenly aware of what sets him off, and I usually have pretty good guess. When it comes to the iPad, there are times he will protest, and then there's other times he most of the time he freely gives it to me with no problem. today he actually initiated giving me the iPad because he wanted to eat, and then came the crying. So I want to help other parents out there really get tuned into their kids, because I think, the narrative from the education system to the parents is often telling them to look for things that aren't really the thing. And that's why I wanted to get into my question with Casey about ABA therapy, because ABA therapy is a lot of repetition, and it's to me, it's like boot camp, the way that I have heard it described. Even having my ABA therapist friend come visit here for like a few days to invest time with Morgan when he was younger, like 4 years ago. And it was like, it's grueling to me. It's like Casey was saying, you feel like you're tormenting the kid. And so Lori said that she would say that is true. What I started to say about ABA therapy earlier is like, you're not really addressing the true problem. It's like in my mind, you're just band-aiding something to, get rid of the symptoms, but you're not getting to the root. And so she said that she's pretty confident that I'll be talking with Casey for a while on that topic. So I'm guessing that, boot camp, yes. That is why I do not want to do ABA therapy, because here, listen, when so there's a whole story behind this, but so I grew up in a household where I was told to pick a religion when I was like 4 or 5, something like that. And so I don't even know how to say this. So I didn't really have any spiritual awareness. My spiritual awareness was like 0. Okay, maybe it wasn't 0, but I didn't read scripture. When I got older, like 42, 3, I learned of scripture that told me exactly what I needed to know about my child. And that is that I should train him up in the way that he should go. And once I had that knowledge, I realized things like ABA therapy, where my son is resistant to it and he's annoyed by it and he's not getting anything out of it, is not the way he should go. That is not how I should train him up. So that's part of my message to parents is don't be so quick to jump on the bandwagon to do everything that like Casey said, not everybody is an expert. There's a lot of people who say they're experts, but she says, boom, love that. Yes.
Lori, you need to come on our show anytime.
He does.
And we're going to put you in the inner circle.
Only because you're agreeing with us, though. Otherwise, you can't. No,
just teasing. No, see, Lori's been here for a while. What got me, and Casey says,
compliance training. So, like just have them. It's that loop. They know. It's the same thing with my son. I can tell when he's doing something on autopilot versus that he has a true awareness of what.
Yes. 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 I'm going to say amen to that. I'm going to say, I'm so into what you just said. When you're with your own child, the teachers, the educators may not know what April just said. It's like, we know when he's engaged. We know when he's just on autopilot. And this is something we want to help people with, even if you're not special needs, because there's so many of you, so many of us. April was that, I was that, until we know, don't be on autopilot anymore. Because I believe it's the same way. Now, I really haven't thought about this, April, and this is going to be another, we're going to save it for next week, the unpacking, but most of us are aware, some of us are aware, I don't think most. Some of us are aware of the 7 billion people plus on the planet. Some of us are aware that we were programmed when we were little kids, up until age 7. And everything that went into us, that we caught, right? Morals are not so much taught as they are caught. And so if your mom is telling you while you're growing up, first 7 years of your life, don't smoke cigarettes, and she smokes 2 packs of cigarettes a day, you're going to get caught. You're not going to be taught, and you're going to do it, is what I mean by that. So I think it's the same way with our special needs kids, that they have that in their subconscious, what they were taught in the first 7 years of life, because we thought, okay, as a 3-year-old, you know this or should know this. And then we talk down to them, when I've always said you need to talk to a child like you talk to an adult, like they can pick up on it, and then you figure out if they can or can't. And that's why you see a lot of prodigies, because some people are teaching their kids to sing at age 1 or 2, or play the piano at this or that age, and find out how good they are at it. So I think a lot of our special needs kids were taught this way as well. So when they're on autopilot and they are in their subconscious mind, because we haven't touched on that, I'd love to hear what Casey and Lori have to say about the subconscious mind of like someone like Momo, who doesn't speak. We don't know. We don't even know what is in his conscious mind, much less in his subconscious mind. So I think that's amazing. But what I wanted to point out is that Lori's been here with us. She didn't take a seat. Casey's still here with us in text, even though she had a seat with us for almost 2 hours now. You know they're invested. You know that they see value in what April and I are doing. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but I have to in the beginning so that you can toot our horn afterwards, because we're not doing this for selfish reasons, and I'm sure everyone here knows this. We're passionate about this because our son is autistic, and we have a vested interest. And I always say, your message should always be from your mess to your message. And so we don't see Momo's autism and his lack of this or lack of that as a mess, the way the world would say, oh, he's a mess. No, don't say he's a mess. Mess to message. No, your mess is just something that you're not familiar with. April doesn't have any other parents that she could learn from or go to and say, here's my son, here's what he's doing. He's autistic. It's like she didn't have any of that.
But here's the thing, is that what I was always up against from the beginning after his diagnosis was I was running across the moms that are out there regurgitating all the stuff they hear from the experts. And just because it's on the internet, or just because somebody has some letters after their name, does not mean that they have the answer for your child. It is a very individualized, hence why we have IEPs. What's an IEP, Roy? Individualized.
Individual. It's the I that I care about. Yes. Individual. And
individualized. But yet there's so many people out there who want to put, this Nat is just, they want to put all kids with autism in this one box. And there is not a one size fits all approach to all kids on the spectrum. They are absolutely as different as a typical child is different from another typical child.
Absolutely. Love what Lori's saying. Different ability over disability. I love it, because we're in the trenches, and Lori, I love wordplay. So play on words, this, that, and the other thing. So if I'll bring the one-liners up in a second, but and that's what I say, the way you see a disability is the way you treat the disability. But if you see it as a different ability, as I like what Sally Hogshead says, different is better than better. So kids on the spectrum, kids that have disabilities or are on the autism spectrum, are not better or worse, because the general population, or the non-special needs kids, I like to say it that way better, because I like to come at it from that perspective. That's who they're compared to, and that's what most educators and most teachers, I say most because not everybody, wants them to, that's the standard. It's like, we want you normal. We want you like these kids over here, when they probably can exceed that perception. And we're here to not give you advice. We're here to give you a different perspective. And if that works for you, then utilize it, implement it, like we talked about earlier, because Casey can tell parents what to do all day long, and here's the new information. If they don't implement, forget it, baby.
She wants to encourage parents to ask the hard questions. That's how we all learn. But see,
Amen. They don't go there.
Parents, many of the parents want to know, how do I fix my child? Like they just want the behaviors to go away. But what they're failing to see in that process is like what Roy was just saying. If you're wanting to normalize your child so that they can assimilate into society and function like a normal person, and I use air quotes, you're going to miss out on the wonderful way that God created your child to be who they were born to be, because you're molding them into the image of society instead of training them up in the way that they should go. So I could talk about this all day, every day, and twice on Sunday, but it's 11:03. So I am going to say thank you to Lori and Casey for being here, and especially Casey for enduring 2 hours in the hot seat, which wasn't that hot, was it? I don't know. It's kind of hot in here. The behaviors are a symptom of a need not getting met.
Yes.
Amen,
Yes.
sister.
Amen, sister. Yes.
On my closing note, see, you got me fired up now, ladies.
Well, that's the way it should be. We feed off of each other's knowledge and then energy, because I'm in with Casey and Lori, because Casey gave us the inside scoop on who Lori is. You know, she works with me, so that's it. That's all I needed to hear. So we're going to elevate you, not from our special guest, but right away to co-host. So whenever you want on that. April, I'm going to get out, so I don't talk anymore. So good night, everyone.
Yeah. So my final thoughts, once again, because Roy was talking, so I'm putting it up again. My final thought is that we need to come together to hashtag, do you like this? Break the isolation, because we're breaking the ice in this environment, doing meet and greets like we did tonight with Casey and with Valerie present, because we already know Valerie. Casey had a little bit of a connection to Valerie, but it was kind of a loose connection, if you will, a loose tie. But tonight, I think they bonded a little bit more deeply. And so this is what we do. You know, we could have had 2 more people. Lori could have joined us in a seat. We could have had 5 of us on here. And this is still in its infancy, because I kind of gave up on going this route 4 years ago, talking, wanting to get autism advocates and parents, autistic people themselves, to jump into a seat, because there was such apprehension about doing it. I'm still not sure why. I don't know if it's the stigma, the shame that some parents feel in sharing some of their journey publicly. I don't know if it's that they think that their hairs have to all be in place, or I don't know. I don't know why I've had so much difficulty getting people from the autism community in a seat with me. But for whatever reason, God has brought it back to the autism connection. And I believe it is going to take people like Casey and Lori, who have a passion, who are not afraid to come on camera. You don't even have to come on camera if that's an issue for you. We'd love for you to, but it's not a deal breaker. So it's going to take people like Casey and Lori, who are open and willing to do this, and to invite people from their communities to come take a seat with us, with Casey present or Lori present, because they're familiar with them, comfortable with them. And Lori and Casey can introduce people to us, just like we introduced Valerie and Casey tonight. That's just how it works. And we can hear other people's stories. And then when they come here and they feel all warm and fuzzy, they're going to go tell people they know, and they're going to bring people to tell stories. So it's all about scaling this so that we can get more people's stories out there, and we can have people connect so they can help each other problem solve. Because none of us is as smart as all of us, said Desmond Tutu. And I agree. On that note, I am going to say good night to all, and to all a good night. We will see you again next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Until then, be healthy, be well. Good night.